Hi, welcome to Morning Market Call. I'm Jeff Butler, and with me today I have our resident expert on fiscal policy here in the Merit School of Management, Mike Beheshti.
Hi there.
Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you on.
It's great to be here.
Mike is a second-year MBA. You're just about ready to wrap up with school, but as I understand, you have been busy this semester working on a research project on TARP and all that has been going on in the past couple of years.
Yeah, so, well, it's been 2 years since TARP was implemented, I guess you could say. And the short of the story, well, TARP stands for the Troubled Asset Relief Program.
Right. And
the short of it is that the government, well, as of March 31st of 2011, the government has actually turned a profit of about $6 billion.
Wow.
But that doesn't quite tell the whole story. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who are the government-sponsored entities that are in charge of extending loans to Americans across the country, and especially Americans that wouldn't qualify for other loans, are some of the main culprits, some would say, of the financial crisis. And actually, $156 billion has already been spent on Fannie and Freddie Mac, going to cover losses. And an estimated $70 to $200 billion is still to be spent to cover future losses. Wow. And I think what's really interesting about this is that anywhere from 40 to 90% of those additional funds is actually going to pay off a 10% dividend to the Treasury in exchange for the bailout.
Wow.
So there's kind of a negative cycle here where you know, they're in a loss position and then they're even going deeper into a loss because they have to pay this dividend.
Right. And obviously this has ramifications for the federal budget deficit and things like that. So, so you talked a little bit about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but obviously there are other views on this. There are people who truly believe that this is the right thing to do. So what are maybe some of those opposing views saying?
Of course. Well, the people who support TARP say, you know, it spent much less than was projected, just a fraction of the cost. And they say, you know, unemployment would have been higher, GDP would have been lower, and we'd actually be experiencing deflation right now, which is actually worse than inflation for the economy. But then on the flip side of the coin, you have people saying, well, hold on, yeah, that's probably true that you came in under budget, but compared to the bailouts of Fannie and Freddie, there wasn't much of an impact from TARP. Right. And still others say, and this is pretty unanimous across the board, that, you know, the housing program that was funded by TARP was a dismal failure. Yeah. The government thought they were going to help 4 million people redo or restructure their mortgages. And 15% of the time, it worked every time. But the remaining 85% of the time, it didn't work a single time. Right. But all in all, the consensus is that TARP probably did prevent a major catastrophe in the financial markets. So in a way, it was a little bit of a necessary evil. Yeah, I think you could say that. We kind of had to spend money to save money and that kind of thing. So what about ARRA? So ARRA stands for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Right. The short story is that the government has gone well over budget on ARRA. $787 billion was appropriated, and they've gone over by $30 billion already. Wow. So how are the funds then being distributed? You talked about. Yeah, so there are roughly you could say three buckets that the funds go towards. The first being tax benefits, the others being contracts, loans, and grants, and the third being entitlements. Right. So I think all of us remember getting $300 to $1,200 a check in the mail or a direct deposit into our account. We were all pretty happy then. So that's where the tax benefits went to pay. The contracts, loans, and grants did just that. They went to organizations in the private sector, the public sector, and BYU was actually the recipient of a few $1 million worth of grants, which I'm sure made several professors here very happy. And lastly, the unemployment benefits, or the entitlements.
Yeah.
Unemployment benefits were actually extended by 20 months, from 79 months to 99 months. Mm-hmm. The states were already providing 26 months of unemployment benefits. The federal government was tacking on another 53 months, and with the stimulus, they decided to give another 20 months.
Right.
Now, there are kind of two views on this. I mean, partly it is very good because there are real people in real need who are having a very difficult time finding jobs right now.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you know, there are those who would argue that, well, look, you know, that could serve as a major disincentive to those who otherwise could find employment from actually going and doing it.
Definitely. So yeah. So obviously, there's a lot of controversy. We're not necessarily hearing about everything that's going on in the news, and then certainly we've only touched the tip of the iceberg here. But it's certainly very interesting, and hopefully we continue to hear more about, you know, whether or not this was a good idea, and how this will affect fiscal policy and decisions that are made in the future.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Best of luck going forward for you. And we'd like to thank you for joining us today on Morning Market Call. Find us at morningmarketcall.org. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And we'd like to see you next time.
Morning Market Call is brought to you by the Marriott School of Management in cooperation with the Brigham Young University Department of Communications. MMC is made possible by generous donations from Larry Tasjan and Gary Williams. This show was produced by Jeff Butler, David Wood, and Doug Mumford, with line producing by Beth Grimmett. For more information, please follow us on Twitter and Facebook.